A lot of talk now going on about how long these will continue for and about the security in London in general. Now, it's important also to look not just at the specifics of what we're seeing, but also of the bigger picture. Where does this anger stem from? And can it at all be compared to what some are saying, which is to some of the protests we've seen here in the United States? Joining me now to talk more about this is Michael Ruppert in Sebastopol, California. He is the founder of the Collapse Network. Hey there, Michael. I wanted to get your insight on what we're seeing in London because I know that you had previous experience as a police officer, I think with LAPD. Now, 16,000 officers have been sent out in London. Do you think that this whole situation is being handled in the right way?
Absolutely not, and I'm extremely suspicious at this point that there is deliberate provocateurism being undertaken by industrialized governments in the West, NATO, U.S. and U.K. especially, to provoke race riots. And I'm really worried that that's what's happening. The unrest I've been predicting for quite some time, but this is the patterns and dispersion and the incidents, and especially the way the media are playing them on both sides of the coast, suggest that they really want to trigger massive civil unrest.
You say they. Who do you think is behind sort of the spreading of civil unrest that, frankly, we've seen over the last few months happen around the world?
The they is anyone who is in service of the infinite growth monetary paradigm. That would be the banks. That would be the oil companies. That would be the absolutely corrupt financial institutions around the world that are now witnessing a $1.4 quadrillion derivatives bubble collapse. That's the they.
Well, what interest would the banks and the oil companies have in triggering this civil unrest?
It's more profitable to destroy things now in this infinite growth paradigm than it is to save them or rescue them. The way the stock markets are manipulated with price to earnings ratios, with all the derivatives, makes it infinitely more profitable to kill than to save. And that's just the reality of the world we live in.
Interesting. You know, I want to kind of get you to harken back a little bit to your time working in LA. I think that you were there 18 years ago, I think, with
much longer than that now.
With what we saw with Rodney King going on. Some people actually comparing this, they say they've never seen anything this bad in the UK, and compare, you know, these fires, these buildings being completely burned out, you know, to Los Angeles back there in the early 90s.
And there's a very suspicious pattern to this, to me, the way the riots are breaking out. Again, the fact and the reality, I mean, I've written a book that's in the Harvard Business School library, but this is a law book, and this is absolutely unchallengeable fact that programs like COINTELPRO, Agitprop, Garden Plot have all existed and all been used. I'm an expert on this. And, you know, so in here, one of the primary incentives or directives or interests of the establishment in putting down the civil unrest in the 1960s was to prevent any alliance between blacks and whites. And they went to any lengths possible to create tension. And that's what I see happening here with the flash mobs, flash robs, and a number of very provocative cases recently.
I think it's really interesting that you bring up the issue of race. I know that certainly what we saw in London in the 80s had a lot to do with race. Some people saying that that element is still there, but not just race. It's also about a group of people that has been sort of held back in a lot of different ways, and as a result, their frustration has built up. Talk a little bit about that aspect in terms of what you're seeing going on with this as an element of these riots.
As I've been writing about this on collapsenet.com for probably a year now, the civil unrest we're seeing around the world that they tried to encapsulate as the Arab Spring has nothing to do with Arab, black, or white. This is a generational revolution. This is a generation of young people who have no hope, who see no future, who understand that civilization is collapsing around them, even as they speak, and they're frustrated beyond belief. I understand that. I just think this kind of violence is the wrong way to fight. There's a better way to fight the beast that's doing this.
Who wins and who loses out of the kind of things that we're seeing right now in London? Certainly some of the things that we've seen in Greece, that protest said to be over the austerity measures there, certainly some violence happening there. Who are the winners and losers in events like this?
Well, I am certain because my background also went to intelligence and throughout the covert operations community, and I'm an expert on that too. That these are being used as test runs now to test command and control systems performances for larger riots that are going to be coming soon. They want to incite further civil unrest because that will serve as a distraction from the economic chaos. I mean, somebody had to send an email to CNN, hey, there's a connection between what's going on in the financial world and England.
So you think that by having these riots in the street, that people are forgetting in some way that, Goldman Sachs made more money than it's ever made last year while most of Main Street is suffering? You think that the people protesting are going to take the attention off the Bank of Americas and the large corporations, for example, that continue to reap the benefits while others suffer?
It's a diversion from what's really causing all this suffering around the world right now. And war, nuclear war, is the ultimate diversion. I believe that all wars kind of come from a place when there's no place else economically to go to cover up your mistakes and your errors.
So what if, some of these people who say they're protesting, I mean, certainly what we're seeing in London is a unique case, but you brought up the various protests that have taken place over the last few months. Many of these people who are out there in the streets say that they want to bring attention, that they want to fight some of these corporations. How can you then say it's the corporations that are behind it?
It's the corporations and the banks. It's the infinite growth monetary paradigm. The only way to fight that is to withdraw any investments you have in any financial instruments anywhere in the world. Stop feeding it, because once you become invested in it, you want to keep it alive. You have an interest to keep alive that which is killing the rest of the planet. So withdraw. That's the way to fight now. We want to save as much infrastructure as possible, and I've been writing about this for years, that we hope for a fast crash of industrial civilization so that we can have some infrastructure left to rebuild with.
Certainly a lot of people out there say those banks should never have been saved in the first place. Very interesting thoughts there. Michael Ruppert, founder of the Collapse Network, joining us from California.